I got a verse in the Gita I thought we looked at. Indriyanam hi chadatam yan mano anuvidhyate. When someone's mana, their mind, is anuvidhyate, it's guided by indriyanam hi charatam. It's guided by the wandering senses. When one's mind becomes guided by the wandering senses, anuvidhyate means it's guided or directed by. So mana anuvidhyate, your mind is directed by indriyanam charatam, by the wandering senses. Tadasya hodati pragyam, that takes away a person's wisdom. That takes away their wisdom. Vayur navam ivambasi, like the wind with a boat in the water. Simile. When you use eva in Sanskrit, in some contexts, when you use the term eva, it means you're going to give a simile. So eva, vayu navam ivambasi. Ambasi means in the water. In the water, vayu navam, like the wind with a boat in the water. What happens with the wind with a boat in the water? It just carries it. It just moves it, carries it. So the verse is, thank you. The verse is, Indriyanam hi chadatam yan mano anuvidhyate. There's a yat tat thing going on here. There's these things in Sanskrit called correlatives. So, with this, then that. So, if this, then that. With this, then also this. So, yat mana, with the mind, anuvidhyate, it's carried away, or it's directed by indriyanam hi chalatam, by the wandering senses. Then tad asya hadati. Hadati means it takes, it steals. Pragyam, wisdom. Tad asya. Then it takes that, it takes one's wisdom, their wisdom. Vayor navam ivambasi, like wind with a boat in the water. I think the meaning is pretty straightforward. What do you guys think? Why don't you guys tell me what the verse means? Shri, can you go deal with my daughter? Thank you. Why don't you guys tell me what the verse means?
When you're chasing your senses, you're just all over the place. You just keep track left and right.
Okay, you think it's pretty straightforward, right? All right. Running all over the place, chasing your senses, okay? That's your paraphrase, okay? I'm looking for a little more than that. That's a good start. Got us off the ground. Yeah.
To add to what he said, you'll end up where you don't want to be.
Okay, so the wind takes away a boat in the water. This is going to take you where you don't want to go. So there's this simile indicates that the wind controls the boat and it can knock you off course. You know, ultimately, if the wind is directly against you, you can kind of work with that wind going this way, and you kind of go You kind of work with the wind, you sort of direct it so it gets your boat going where it wants to. But a lot of times when you sail on a ship, you're doing this. It's not a straight shot. You're moving where the wind takes you in your general direction. And you can turn the sails a little bit so they catch the wind and kind of push you where you want to go a little bit. And there's ways to catch the wind and then redirect that wind to where you want to go. But if the wind's blowing straight against you, just take the sails down. Because you're just, you can't compete. If you're in a sailboat, you can't compete. So, yeah, you'll go where you don't want to go. Good. So that's you're exploring or unpacking the simile a little bit. Good. More? Yeah.
That it's really easy to get swept away just a slight bit and we'll get lost.
Yeah, a little bit of wind can do a lot of damage, for sure. You're on the boat, you're kind of vulnerable. Yeah, so the senses, you get a sense of danger. The verse is meant to instill a little bit of fear, a little bit of danger, a little bit of sobriety. It's dangerous. It's a concern. Something's dangerous, and what's the appropriate emotional reaction to danger? Yeah, fear. I think fear is caution. Maybe not fear, at least caution. Maybe fear. More? Yeah.
Well, if you're always letting the wind steer the boat, you're never going to make it out of that ocean. So it's like you're never going to get where you need to go. You're just always looking for wrong course.
Not sure that works because you can actually get from point A to point B in a sailboat. People have been doing it for a long time. Mute yourself, Anandani. And so you can get from point A to point B in a sailboat. So if you're dependent on the wind and you'll never get where you want to go, then that would mean sailing would be a futile endeavor that never got anybody from point A to point B. Stop. At this point, what you need to do, my brother, is you need to acknowledge the fault in what you said and not just rephrase it because what you said was incorrect. So you actually need to retract what you said and start from scratch. But it's not a mere rephrase. That would indicate that you made a solid point that was basically sound, but maybe you could just nuance it a bit, as opposed to you made a point which wasn't accurate and needs to be, in many ways, just paused. You need to start again and hit the reset button and reframe entirely the point you're trying to communicate or rethink the point you're trying to communicate. Now, if we weren't BFFs, then I'd let it slide, but we're tight. You're my people. And so I'm not so laid back. I demand a higher level of excellence from my people, and you're my people. Back to you.
Well, we need to retract this. The big point that I missed is that you, in this situation, you're dependent on the wind. It's not going to go anywhere. You actually need to know how to use it. But if you let it just steer you about and without using that intelligence to work with it, you're always going to be lost.
Excellent. That, of course, is brilliant. That's a good point. I got you guys. We'll keep talking to him. That's a great point. So you can't not deal with the wind. The wind is I don't know, an ontological reality. It's a basic fundamental reality that you have to contend with if you're in a boat on the water. The wind, of course, is a metaphor for what in this simile? The senses. It's not a metaphor for the mind. The metaphor for the mind is there you go. Mind is the boat. The wind is the senses. And so you can't get away from your senses. They exist. They're a basic part of your world that you have to contend with. And as such, you have to learn how to use them successfully. That brings something in we haven't discussed thus far. And it's an extremely important extrapolation from the metaphor that's given, from the simile, which is a type of metaphor that's given. Yeah, good. At this point, I think it's important to reverse a bit. When we talk about senses, I think that needs to be understood. I think devotees inherit a lexicon, a specialized language, when you join our club. Just like you get a secret handshake when you join a club, or just like you get jumped into a gang and there's certain rites of passage. So sometimes when you join a group, you inherit, as becoming a member of that group, a lexicon, a specific vocabulary of technical language that enables you to talk to people in your group in almost like a shorthand. Because you have things in common, and those things turn into a language within a language. Did you guys follow that? I think we use the term senses in our literature, and therefore in our common discussions, in a very specific way that's different than how the term gets used, generally speaking, in English. It shouldn't be selling stuff so late at night. Should we go over there and tell them what time it is? Huh? We're pretty loud too. That's a good point. All right. Glass houses and stones and such. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and retract my position too. When we say senses, the wandering senses carrying away the mind, here's what we're saying. If you get lusty or greedy, lust is unbridled desire to possess a person and enjoy a person. And greed is unbridled desire to possess or enjoy stuff. And so you're in the world, you got a body, and naturally your body is this amazing, not really so amazing, it's pretty limited, but it's this vehicle for enjoyment. What's the most intense material enjoyment an animal experiences? Yes, sir. Orgasm, which is what you meant when you said sex, yeah. But the specific pleasure is the orgasm within the sex. It's a huge neurotransmitter hit. You get flooded with oxytocin and dopamine. Your serotonin levels get wildly adjusted as well. It's addictive, it's a high, and there's a full rush, almost like a hit a crack. You get a full rush. It's not like smoking weed where you get a mild euphoria that kind of just hangs. It's like a spike. Right? You don't know? You're like, I don't know. Why are you asking me? That's the wandering senses. When we talk about the wandering senses, we're talking about becoming addicted to and victimized by material enjoyments that take away your freedom because they're addictive, which means you have less freedom. They, a lot of times, put you in dangerous or compromising or uncomfortable positions. If we wanted to double up on orgasm, which is, I'm going to call orgasm the top of the pops, like standard winner for most intense sensual pleasure somebody can have. So much of the word sensual is really a euphemism for sexual. But if we were going to throw in a computer for orgasm, what would that computer be? I feel like you guys are all really stupid. Huh? Making money? I mean, yeah, making money, it's there, right? People get freaked out about making money. It engulfs them. I generally don't think that people, well, let's just figure out competition. Will you avoid orgasm? Huh? I'm just asking a general question. I'm not like honing in on you. We're not compete with orgasming. My man says yes. What do you think? What do you think? I'm asking you, bro. Not you, man. Behind you, bro. You're getting all weird with me. I didn't ask for some people, Chief. It's an interesting question, isn't it? It's an interesting question. Not always the easiest answer either. What standardly competes with orgasm? Thank you. Are you like, what are you guys, all a bunch of like virgins who've never taken drugs before? A bunch of sex mongers, sex addicts, but you've never taken drugs? Raise your hand if you've ever taken drugs. Do drugs sometimes compete with sex?
Yes.
There's actually two answers to the question. Raise your hand if you've taken drugs, then raise your hand if you've taken hard drugs. Do hard drugs compete with sex? 100%. Heroin, cocaine. Fall in love with a drug and functionally have a romantic relationship with drugs such that they sacrifice all of their other relationships to always be close to and attached to and in proximity to their drug of choice. And it's described in romantic terms, and it takes a romantic toll on people because you're unable to serve two masters at once, and it ends up destroying all of your other relationships, which proves just how powerful it is. Money, some people do it with money. Some people do it with sport. They get so into something, they just sacrifice everything for it. But in this group, I think there's a value in explaining when we say your senses, or, it's like, okay, could you become so addicted to eating that it just ruins your entire life? Sure. Do any of us in this room have that problem? No. How do I know that? Because nobody is morbidly obese. Maybe some of us are a little chunky. We could stand to like not eat the third course, but nobody here is obese. Except for you. You are extremely fat. You really got to work on that. You hold it all in your belly too. Some kind of weird genetics. Of course, I was tricking you. Just because somebody's not fat, does that mean they're not totally flipped out on food? No, because we got bulimia and anorexia, which are weird relationships with food, which are just as addictive and ruin people's lives. Did you guys know that eating disorders are the number one cause of death amongst mental illnesses? Right? Number one. Amongst mental illnesses, more people die from eating disorders than any other mental illness on the planet. And that includes all of them. Schizophrenia and everything else. So, yeah, just because we don't see anybody who's super fat, or even really like fat, you guys, like maybe there's a little chunk, but no like real fat, obese, you're going to die sooner. That doesn't mean that nobody has this really addictive relationship with food. And so there are people who can get really addicted and twisted up about food. So when we're talking about sensual stuff, it's like, oh, your nose can like smell a flower, and then you like wander towards that flower, or you hear the sounds of the sirens calling you, like Odysseus, and you'll put wax in your ears. Now you crash on the rocks, if you guys are familiar, with the Odyssey. But that's not really the kind of stuff we struggle with, right? You don't like hear something and like you like crash. That doesn't happen. We have like a kind of, there's a sort of standard template of sensual things you got to avoid. And that's having sex with the wrong people, dangerous liaisons, getting too addicted to sex. That's a problem. Really messes people up. Getting addicted to drugs. That's a problem. It really messes people up. Getting addicted to food. That's a problem. It really messes people up. Does anybody get like addicted to music and it ruins their life? Does anybody get addicted to smelling stuff? And like, I'm not saying cocaine or heroin. I'm saying like, like scents, like perfumes. It ruins their life. You follow? So this greed for stuff and this greed for people, this is what's mentioned about these wandering senses. If you let those sensual enticements run your life and you move in whatever direction they blow you, then you're just getting blown around the place like someone who just puts their boat out in the water and doesn't adjust their sails and do anything. You're just going to be blown around in circles. You're going to crash. You're in incredible danger. Prabhupada one time said, my Western disciples are not scared enough of Maya, illusion. So to a large extent, I think we're not scared enough of what can happen. You dip your toe in some spirituality, you're doing a little meditation, you got like a little higher consciousness, you join a tribe, a family, you get your act together, develop a sadhana, you have a community, and then you pick the wrong sexual partner, or you start dabbling in the wrong drug, or you get too into making money and buying that house, and like you wake up 5-10 years later and you're in like Timbuktu, which is actually a real place, by the way, in Northern Africa. Just FYI. That's what's being described in this verse. It's not so generic. It's just like the senses, like, you know. It's you can take within the sensual pursuits, and we can make a top 3, top 5 list, and if you can avoid those, pretty much you're good. Pretty much you're good. You can all make a list. You can all make a list. And you gotta not let those appetites run your life. That doesn't mean that you completely deny them, which is what it would have to be if we just denied the wind altogether. But it does mean you are playing with fire. You ever watch people who race sailboats? It's insane. It's like dangerous. They're like flipping sails this way and that way. They're like calling out, like they're ducking, like stuff like knock you out, knock you unconscious, kill you. Like huge, like massive, multi-100-pound sails moving like really fast this way and that way. The waves are coming, they're cutting through it. They can capsize. It's like, it's no joke. It's no joke. To some extent, we should view the material world like that. We should view our addictive patterns like that. We should view different specific sensual pursuits like the ones I just mentioned like that. And we should avoid them like the plague. Otherwise, you start playing with fire and you get burned. You know? You follow? Oh, I'm just going to watch a little pornography. Just a little bit. I won't mess with my head too much. I'm just going to grind up against him a little bit. While we're making out, I'm not going to like do anything more. I'm just going to grind on him a little bit. Just a little bit. That much. I'm just going to do a little bit of cocaine. Just a little bit. Like, just take one hit of crack. It's going to take one hit of meth. Just a quick one. You follow? Now, we got no hardcore current drug users in the room right now, right? But we got some former ones. Just kidding. We got some former ones. And for anybody who's been addicted to hard drugs in their life, it's like hard drugs are Pandora's box, bowl full of agony. Can you go in there and make sure she's okay? So for those people who've been addicted to drugs, they always got to steer clear from them. I think most people have a mild sex addiction. Most people got to be on the lookout for lust. On a regular basis. I think most people use sex as a coping mechanism for stress. And so if you want to, because life is stressful, so if you want to contend with life without going down that road, it takes work and diligence, perseverance, and like a certain sharpness. You gotta stay sharp. You gotta stay frosty. If you've had an eating disorder, you gotta watch yourself and your relationship with food. You can start to go down that weird road pretty quick. These are the kind of things we're talking about. And Krishna's making a point. We are in the material world. We are surrounded by sense objects, things we can try to enjoy. And we can get addicted to stuff and lose sight of what's really important pretty easily. And it's like we're pros. We're all professional sailors on the ocean of material existence. And the stakes are high. And if you want to not capsize, not blow it, not be here today and gone tomorrow, you need to adopt a careful approach. Have a healthy degree of fear. Recognize there's danger. Even with things like making money. Devotees sometimes will avoid business ventures which will just take too much of their prana because it's just not worth it. It's like the cost is too high to their family, to their spiritual life. We're in the grind, we're trying to make moves, but not to such an extent where we'll just do anything to turn a buck. It's a heavy verse. What's the verse telling us? It's telling you to figure out what's really important. Anchor yourself to that. Sail towards that. And be ready to drop your sails or hoist them up, or I don't even know what the language is, whatever. You know? Because I want to go there. I don't want to go over there. I figured out where I want to go. I know where I am. I know where I want to go. I'm going to ride the winds in that direction. Choose my partner carefully. Choose my career carefully. Choose what I focus on carefully. Choose what I let become important to me carefully, because I want to make sure that whatever I do, at least it doesn't take me away from that. Maybe I can stop and smell some roses along the way and stop in a few exotic ports of call and take some temporary diversions, but I'm not forgetting where I want to go. And the material world is filled with stuff which will take you away from where you want to go. And some of it comes at a high price. Sometimes you're way over there now. Maybe I can't even make it over there anymore. I'm on a clock. Orgasm, drugs, money, fame. You follow? Validation. That's a dangerous one. You got raised by your parents. They were narcissistic, so they didn't give you a whole lot of attention because they were too self-absorbed. So you grew up feeling like not getting the support you needed to develop a sense of self, because you build your sense of self off of your attachment figures, and you hang with your attachment figures and feel their unconditional love. Then they give you space. You're able to wander about in the world. You have a safe place to come home to. You model yourself after them. You model yourself after their best qualities. You aspire for the qualities they possess, but they're too wrapped up in their own world to give you attention and share attention with you and make eye contact with you and spend time with you. and make you feel secure, then you grow up without a sense of self because you depend on other attachment figures for creating a safe space for you to develop your sense of self, mimicking them. That's actually how you develop a sense of self. You mimic your parents and imbibe their qualities and their values as your own and start to conceive of yourself as different from them while being close to them so they can protect you as you develop the ability to conceive of yourself as different from your attachment figure, which happens around the age of 3 or 4. 2 to 5, whole thing's done. If that doesn't happen and your parents don't give you that support, then you grow up without ever really forming your own sense of self because you didn't get nurtured by them enough to build it. Because you had to be next to them to build it. Did you guys follow that? Alternatively, they were just super enmeshed in your business. And then you didn't have the space to form it. So either they didn't give you enough support to form it, or they didn't give you enough space to form it. It's a razor's edge. You need enough support to form your own sense of self, mimicking. Just like you need enough interaction with human beings to learn how to speak. You mimic them, and then you develop your own ability to speak in your own sentences. So that's you need enough support and interaction. They didn't give you that because they were wrapped up in their own world. They abandoned you. So now you grow up with a proper sense of self. Alternatively, they're too enmeshed and they're too in your grill and they don't give you the space. You need both support and space, and therefore you can't break free from them enough, and you grow up enmeshed with them and you still can't form your own sense of self. Either one of which is a disaster and forms a fundamentally narcissistic person where you are ever dependent on other people for validation, and you can't hold your own self, and in times of stress and difficulty you can't take shelter of yourself and make it through, and therefore you're always running after other people to support you. Did you guys follow this? If you need that validation too much, then what, you have no core, and therefore you have no anchor point, and therefore you compromise your morals and your values, because what your only value is that you need validation. And you sell your soul to whoever gives you a warm fuzzy. Did you guys follow that one?
Yes.
And if you got too enmeshed, then you're repulsed by people wanting to get intimate with you, and you want to shove them away whenever they want to get close to you because you're afraid they're going to rob you of your independence because you grew up without any sense of independence, and therefore you're always freaked out by getting too close to people. So you need constant validation, but intimacy is too much. Alternatively, you didn't get anything because you were abandoned, and now you're chasing after intimacy, throwing yourself at people looking for intimacy, and those two people usually find each other. The person who's throwing themselves at other people for intimacy, and the person who needs that proximity but can't stand the intimacy, and they find each other. But ultimately, both parties have the same problem. They don't have enough of a sense of self. And they always need the other, the person they're saving that they can't get too close to, or the person who's going to save them, that somehow they always pick the wrong person. They can never get close enough to them. You don't want them to get too close to you, or you can't get too close because you pick the wrong person who has that flip side problem, and you're doing this dance forever. That's a problem. Because that's competing with you being able to go where you want to go. We got to develop a sense of self. Develop a value system. Codify it. Understand what's important. Great thing about an organized religion is a bunch of people way more smart than you took thousands of years to codify everything for you, and they just give it to you on a silver platter and make a case for it. Human life is for self-realization, not sense gratification. Get that as a neck tattoo, Put that on your wall. Human life is for self-realization, not sense gratification. Simple living and high thinking. purpose of life is to serve the divine. You get they're brilliant value systems, is what they are. Kind of really far out, pithy, tight, really dense, pregnant with meaning values that are, like E equals MC squared. They just like put them on a t-shirt. They're brilliant. Spend your whole life thinking about it. Develop a sense of value, what's important, and then make sure that when those winds are coming, they're not blowing you away from that thing. You ever get with a girl who blows you away from where you want to be? You read that? You ever have a romantic partner that took you in the opposite direction of where you want to be? It's hellish. It's a disaster. You ever have a friend group that took you in the opposite direction of what you wanted to be? That ultimately ended up being a ball and chain dragging you down? You ever had friends like that? You ever dabble with drugs and all of a sudden you're like going to hell in a handbasket and you're like, how did I even get here? And now it's completely screwed with the wiring in my brain, so I never even get to go back to neutral. I can make it beautiful, but I'm like that Japanese pottery thing where you break the pot and you fill it in with gold and it becomes beautiful. But there's no going back to just before. For the rest of my life, I've etched stuff in my brain. This is real stuff. A real verse. It's extremely practical. It's a little poetic, a little metaphorical. It's got that beautiful simile in there, and it's thought-provoking. It seems very generic. But this verse is meant to be then taken and turned into something functional and practical of how you live. Does that make sense? Give me some feedback. Yeah.
I think being afraid or afraid is very helpful. Like last week when I wasn't afraid. I feel like I'm a little more afraid looking at it happen.
You mean the thing we were talking about?
Yeah, I fell down, but I wasn't thinking about being afraid. You know?
Yeah, I mean, your real problem is this. If you fall down again, I'm going to think you're a chump. And we're all going to think you're a chump. I already think you're half a chump. Like I'm all right because you've already made enough mistakes. So I'm like, you're a bit of a chump. But you're like my chump, you know? You follow? You're still invited to the party. You know what I mean? But if you go making mistakes again and again and again, we're just going to take you a whole hell of a lot less seriously. Like if you show up here and like defecate on the floor, I'm like, bro, get out of here. Like there's, you know what I mean? You get no self-control. Like skedaddle, you're gone. Adios. If people are having illicit sex with like every girl they meet at the temple, you're that guy. That doesn't make you a player. Makes you a chump. Makes you a simp. There's a verse in one of our texts. It's patriarchal, but you can just flip it for women. It says, don't be attached to women. Don't be attached to men who are attached to women. Don't be attached to men who look at men who are attached to women. Flip it. Don't be attached to men. Don't be attached to women who are attached to men. Don't be attached to women who look at a woman who's attached to a man. You guys are like, I don't get it. In groups that are celibate, that are monastics, they take a real hard line on this stuff. They just avoid the plague. You follow? And they avoid people who are going to like maybe get the plague. Like, I'm not going to get COVID. I'm not going to hang out with anybody who might get COVID. I'm not going to hang out with anybody who might hang out with anybody who might get COVID. You follow? It's just a very practical way of like, I don't want anything to do with that. Oh, you're going to go do that? You're not coming over to my house. Oh, you're hanging out with the dude who's hanging out with the dude who did that? Yeah, none of you guys come to my house. COVID's actually like really like, made it easy to make these points. So, it's one thing if you like found a girl, took blessings, went slow. But if you fell in a sack with another girl, bro, you're a pariah. You're my pariah, but being my pariah gets you way less invitations than being my chump. And that gets you way less invitations than being my brother. I'm, of course, using myself, but I really mean with a community of high-minded people that have morals and standards. You blow it, and now you're no longer taken seriously. And that sucks. If you actually value your tribe and your standing in your tribe and your reputation and your dignity and your integrity and your character and how your brothers and sisters and the people who you care about, who represent what you want to acquire in your own life and what you want to exemplify in your own life, and you're just constantly falling short, that's a heavy price to pay for one orgasm. You follow? You got to think it through, man. And that requires a little bit of distance and a little bit of foresight. You doing the math. Oh, I can't get into that. I got to stay away from that. I got to get married. So I'm locked and loaded. I got like one person. So like if there was a problem, I got one person to go to. I'm not all over town. I'm not like spun out. It's a very practical, I want to be self-realized. I'm not going to be able to be selfish for the rest of my life. Let me find one partner, cultivate a deep relationship with somebody who shares my value system, and like lock it down with them. That way the sex thing's taken care of. You know? And you got that, what do they call that? The, what's it called, principle? The name of that president? What is it? Coolidge principle, thank you. Calvin Coolidge showed up at the chicken farm with his wife. There was a rooster there, mating with a bunch of chickens left and right. And Calvin Coolidge's wife, the president's wife, Mrs. President, whatever her name, First Lady, she said, how many times does that rooster mate in a day? And they're like, like 17 to 20. And she's like, wow, tell my husband that. And it's like, Mr. Coolidge, Mr. President, your wife wanted us to tell you. It's actually called the Coolidge Principle. You can wiki it. I don't believe the story. I think they made the story up. But it's called the Coolidge Principle. They told the president, they said, your wife wanted us to mention that these roosters will mate 17, 20 times a day. And then the president said, same hen or different hens? So I call it different hen every time. We're like, yeah, go tell my wife that. So if you get married to one person, you're not having sex with two people. You're having sex with one person. Is that an austerity? Damn straight. Especially if you're a male. I think men are more like R strategists, like cockroaches. Women are more like K strategists, like mammals. Makes sense for a woman to be locked in with one guy. She's got to carry the baby. Practically speaking, you got to carry the baby, got to lactate. Just biologically, just like from an evolutionary point of view, just primatology, just straight, just I got to carry a baby for 9 months. I got to lactate. I'm not going to be able to move around as much and gather food. It makes sense for me to be hooked up with somebody who can provide. You follow? Men don't have that issue. It's an austerity. Creates intimacy, creates depth, but comes at a price. You got to fight for that, man. You got to fight for being faithful. What to speak of for being celibate. It's not just that you fall down. You lose our respect. And if that matters to you, then you fight. That's the great thing about a group of people. We're all running together. We're all climbing a mountain together. We're all climbing Everest together. We're all running a marathon together. And now you want to quit, but if your bro is standing right next to you, he's limping, he's bleeding, he's not quitting. You going to quit? That's why I say in war, you don't fight for a cause, you fight for the person sitting next to you, standing next to you. There's great strength in the group that has a shared value system. It takes the trouble to think it through, discuss it, agree upon it. And then when you're tempted to fall outside of it, you're like, whoa, I don't want to lose this. You've got to figure out your values. Join a tribe of people with the same values. And stay the course. Maybe mess around a little bit with taking the slightly circuitous route. Stopping a few ports of call, but you're always heading in that basic direction. That's an amazing life. Comments? Yeah.
Thanks for this class, and I really appreciate this verse. But it's really close to true life experiences, and most immediately, like the worst adventure I ever had sailing. Is almost the average of my just experience in real life trying to stick to the path. And it's really clear because the human that I am in my experience is the sailor that I am on the ship. And I face the same problems both ways. So it really gives me a lot to reflect on, applying, what I learned on that adventure and how I can make my spiritual life and my spiritual journey easier. Immediately just allowing myself to be more vulnerable to the community.
You're good at reframing things, man. You're good at putting things in your own words. Some natural teaching ability. It's good. Thank you. More? Yeah.
I think this is an excellent, I was blown away by the analogy that Krishna is making, because I think it poses a problem that you're helpless, and then there's a solution within the analogy as well. Some points that you brought up is that you're a ship and there's winds blowing around. You can find something to anchor yourself to. Your value system, other people, that will keep you from being blown away. And I think the second thing is you become a skilled sailor, so you can use actually those winds to help you push you forward.
Good stuff. Yeah, the analogy is brilliant. It's deep. There's a lot of profundity in it. There's a lot of depth to it. If you sit with it right, you think it through right, there's some really good stuff in there. And you got to make it practical, which is what I did. Good. One more? Yeah.
I really thank you for the class. I really liked how you extracted the deep meaning from the text of how we need to find out what's valuable, because it really gives meaning to the sails on the boat.
Implicit in the idea of a boat on the water is that you're trying to go somewhere, which means you have a goal. And when you're a human being, your goal is your value system. Those things which are most important to you, which guide your life. So it's assumed in the verse, but and although it's not stated directly, it's an assumption. It's an unstated premise of the verse, and most of the time you need to bring those things out so we can reflect on them. Right? More?
So just reflecting on myself, coming here and hanging out and attending your association, it's just it reminds me that we have somewhere to be, and it encourages me to exercise.
What would happen if you couldn't get it together to commit to Janava? You lose so much of our respect. You're one of us. And if you behave like a fool and you never grow up and never learn how to commit and never learn how to make a decision and keep it, and you're always vacillating, you lose respect. We should think like this. I have a group of people that are with me that I'm committed with, and we're doing something amazing with our life. We're slaying dragons. We're doing something amazing. We're doing the best thing. You find a group of people, you find out what the best thing is, you find a group of people who want to do that best thing with you, and you commit to them. And then you do it. And you smell the roses along the way and have a lot of fun along the way, and have some stuff you do on the side, no problem, but you don't forget what the course of your life is. And you stay faithful to that. You stay loyal to that. And that's an amazing life. And sometimes like, for me, I wouldn't do it, but I'm not going to let you down. Have you ever felt like that before? You ever had like a gym buddy and you don't want to work out, but you're like, bro, I'm going to go for you. You ever do that? I'm going to go for you. Right? Or this guy does 1,000 burpees in one set. There are some times where you're doing 1,000 burpees, you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? But you're like, I got to keep my rep. Right? I got to keep my rep. And that your reputation makes you keep going, isn't it? You push through, right? That's what happens, right? I got a rep. I can do 1,000 burpees. All the guys in the yard are checking me out. They're going to think I'm a chump if I can't do it. I got a certain position. Right? You follow? So it can be in the yard or it can be at the temple. I'm a man of integrity. I'm a woman of integrity. I have a value system. I'm with a group of people who have the same value system. I keep my values. I stay the course. Why? Because that's what gives me my membership into this tribe. And if I don't stay the course and I fail, and I lie about it and I pretend, I'm not going to feel close to anybody anymore. I feel all alone if I'm in a room full of my brothers. If I do make a mistake, I gotta own up to it. And I got to get back in the saddle and try again, make amends. And if I keep blowing it left, right, and center, people are going to take me less seriously. But I want them to take me seriously. I want my shoulders to be strong so people can lean on me too. I want to do for others what was done for me. And so I got to wake up in the morning. I got to chant my rounds. I got to follow the principles. I got to do service. I got to stay frosty. I got to stay strong. I got to avoid those open windows. Because those open windows aren't taking me where I want to go. They represent the worst of me, not the best of me. And I'm about being the best of myself because I'm with a group of people who are amazing. And we're doing something amazing together. That's progressive life. Most people do that to make money. That's like their value system. Or they like be a member of some gang or some like tribe of losers who are like fans of the LA Raiders or something like that. Like whatever, right? We're doing that to love an all good, all powerful deity. We found the cure for cancer, the universal solvent, the fountain of youth, touchstone. Everything, all wrapped up in one. The most beautiful goal you could possibly have. And a group of people who want to achieve it. Alright. Let's skip kirtan. We have to do arti, right? Quick kirtan. We'll have dinner. Thank you guys so much.